Oh, the other question I had for you, Pete. I was listening to Bill Simmons this morning, and then I saw him tweet. He is saying that one of the interested parties with buying the Celtics is Jeffrey Lurie. And so this is an interesting one because there's been so many smoke and mirrors with this Celtics thing, and Fenway Sports Group and John Henry have come back to the well a couple of times, and they're not. Huh?
It's the first I'm hearing of this. This is interesting.
This was just tweeted by Bill this morning. This was just reported this morning. Jeffrey Lurie interested. He's got a bunch of, I think he's from Mass. He has a couple degrees from Mass schools, Celtics guy. And obviously Bill would know that better than just about anybody, and has an interest in buying the Celtics. So let me ask you this, Pete, a couple of different questions. First thing I'll start with, Lurie, the owner. What do you think?
He's amazing.
He's amazing. I thought too.
The only thing that Lurie did wrong.
3 Super Bowls in less than a decade here, by the way.
And the only mistake he really made publicly, as I can remember, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch, but he called the Eagles, he was like, we're the gold standard. He said that publicly like 6 years ago, maybe. And I think a lot of people took him to task for that. He caught a lot of shit for that because, ultimately or subsequently, they didn't win a bunch of Super Bowls after he said that. They did eventually. But when you say
what's kind of funny about that, by the way, is outside of the Chiefs, they probably are the model organization right now.
Oh, there's no question.
Like the last 4 or 5 years, obviously made it to 2 Super Bowls. They have a quarterback who's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. I think anyone can tell you that he's not particularly close to Patrick Mahomes, but yet they're still in it every year. They draft exceptionally well. Sorry, go ahead. They just they're like the silver standard right now.
They are, and he stuck with, there was a time when he could have gotten rid of Howie Roseman. He didn't, and, that's Eagles GM, and Roseman has done a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. And even with Sirianni, they almost fired him last offseason, but they were like, all right, how about you get some new assistants? And Sirianni took the marching orders. Changes were made. Clearly they worked. And somehow Sirianni has made it work with Jalen Hurts, too. I think there's so much more to that story that I would like to know, and eventually will probably be reported. But their coexistence, I think you look at ownership, and that's the kind of stuff that filters down, making relationships like that work, where a lot of times with a bad owner, that'll screw up a situation like that big time.
God, that is so Celtics too. Like the Celtics the last 20 years have been so good at just, for lack of a better term, just doing things the right way. Like having the right people in place, trusting them, continuity, trusting them through a rebuild, and it working out tremendously.
Like even that Kyrie situation could have gotten so yucky for the Celtics.
Absolutely.
It kind of went away.
Good point. Like that could have been that would have ruined a lot of lesser franchises.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And 30 teams in the NBA, that's probably doing a real number on 25, 26 of them.
Absolutely.
Here's your star player. You traded some real capital for him. He says he was going to re-sign. Now he's forcing his way out pretty ugly. He was not a great teammate to the young guys that you're hoping to build around. And now you got to build around him. That's not an easy situation. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Well, and I think Celtics ownership has done the job. Let the fans take stuff personal. We can't do that. And I think that the Celtics ownership and their front office has done a great job of that over the course of the last, couple decades.
Kyrie now 1-15 against the Celtics since the 2021 playoffs.
He's still amazing too.
Good player, yeah.
I mean, amazing. Watching Kyrie is like, it's every once in a while you're reminded because he can be so douchey. You're like, geez, this guy is so amazing. That's right.
That's why it was great to have him on the team. We didn't know about, we knew about some of the stuff happening inside the locker room. Like it was pretty evident that 18-19 season was kind of a mess. But all right, so that helps me as a Celtics fan kind of consume this. So the other thing with it is with the Celtics is there's going to be all this second apron stuff and with the new NBA CBA. And I think Brad Stevens is really a good enough executive that he's going to be able to maneuver that. But there's going to be a luxury tax the Celtics are going to have to pay to keep these guys in-house, all these guys that they re-signed this past year purposely to get ahead of it, to get ahead of the CBA. But they're going to have to pay some luxury tax to keep this team together. And so you need an ownership group that is willing to spend some money, which is not usually the case, in the NBA with the salary cap and all that, NFL as well. Obviously you have some cheap guys who don't spend up to the cap. You think Lurie's able to do that?
I think Lurie does
put some money into this thing.
I think Lurie is the type of owner, in my experience in watching him with the Eagles, where if he comes to town and the Celtics, let's say, win another championship this year, he will spend the money it takes to keep that team together. 5 years from now, I don't know if he rolls the dice per se on huge money free agents.
That's all right. I need 2 years from now. I need 3 years from now. 5 years from now, it's going to be a whole new world. So
yeah. So I think you're good. Yeah, I think he's the kind of guy that will spend the money to keep the gang together, right? And to keep the continuity, and of course to keep goodwill with the city of Boston, because like I've said to you before, like these teams are like public trusts. Like it's the city has just as much invested as the owner does, and it works well for them when the teams do well. So I think that he'll. Yeah, especially an initial PR move. Yeah, for sure. Like Josh Harris. Like Commanders fans talk about Josh Harris like he's the Pope or Mother Teresa. Like give me a couple years on that one and get back to me. As a Sixers fan, like that Sixers organization sucks. And I'm not just saying that, like it's a shadow of the grit that the city of Philadelphia responds to.
I didn't realize, by the way, how bad the record was until they showed the standings during the Celtics game the other day. Oh my God, dude, they're terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
I thought they were hovering around 500. They're not even close.
They're bad, but there's like an apathy within the city around the Sixers, which is just what you never want. You never want that. We saw Baylor flirt with that on the football field, and it's just like the most depressing thing.
Yeah. And look, I mean, Philly, you got a team in the Super Bowl. You had the best team in the National League most of the year last year.
Look, and honestly, I'm wearing this Villanova thing today, right? And I'll tell you, even when I've been so fortunate, I can say this. Early in my life, I was not, but over the last decade or so, I've been so blessed with Philly teams, and I consider Villanova a Philly team because they're my team, because that's where I grew up and my family and stuff went there. But they're teams you can be proud of. Like, I was thinking about that. The Eagles this year, like I can be. Jalen Hurts is awesome as a guy, for all we know. Saquon Barkley, same way. Sirianni was a little bit douchey, but you kind of grow to like love him. You can deal with him. I should put it that way. But Villanova,
you can defend him.
Yeah, Villanova.
Good enough that you can defend.
Like Baylor and the Scott Drew teams, like they're a team you can really be proud of. So I'm proud of this. I'm lucky as a fan right now. I know what it's like to suck. And I was thinking yesterday about the Cowboys. Like, man, are they really that far away? I think they might be still, which sucks for them.
Yeah. What did Mosley say today? Real quick.
Awesome. I mean, he was talking about. I had a prediction that I think if Schottenheimer, who's already conducted his press conference, but I don't know what it looked like. I haven't seen it. If he comes off with some charm and with some wit and like a guy who knows what he's doing, which I'm sure he will, I think that'll lessen the blow a little bit. Mosley disagrees. He says that. The fan base is so hurt right now. And
that's the thing, Mosley's been through it. Mosley's seen this.
Yeah, so he knows.
Not with Jason Garrett specifically.
Yeah. He said he talked, Mosley said that the Todd Witten thing, him coming and being a part of it, doesn't look like that's going to happen. He talked about Eberflus being a defensive coordinator there. There's some potential there for the Cowboys to be decent next year, but he also said, and I didn't know this, I probably should have known, that Dak had a lot to do with this, that there's a big comfort level, not just with Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones and somebody who's already been in the building, but with Dak and Brian Schottenheimer. Yeah.
That's entry-level job. I just didn't think it was that. I didn't think the Patriots were an entry-level job. I didn't think the Cowboys were an entry-level job. One last quick question on Lurie, because I know you –
Mosley said, like, and Matt was very honest about this. And if you think about Mosley's career too, he was more dialed in than he ever was probably in 2006. And he said people were reminding him that Schottenheimer was a big-time coaching candidate back then when he was a hot young offensive coordinator at 36 years old. And Matt was like, honestly, I don't even remember that. If he was, that's great, but I don't remember it. And that's my big concern around Brian Schottenheimer. I would even go as far to say, like, I don't know. And I have no clue. And there's no evidence behind this, but like, is there something going on that we don't know about this guy? Because he's 51. He's been an assistant for almost 30 years. His dad is Marty Schottenheimer. If he's anywhere near a real good coach, he would have been a head coach by now, but 3 times over.
Correct.
So what's going on?
Look at Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, so what's happening with that? I wonder what's going on there. But again, we'll find out. Time will tell. they're going to kick the ball off, next September, and the Cowboys will be back out there with another chance to win on the field where it happens. And all the noise has nothing to do with that.
One last quick question, because I know you got to get out of here. One more thing on Lurie. You as an Eagles fan, how do you feel about your owner going and buying another team?
Look, dude, I could go all like sports czar with you, and you shouldn't be able to own teams in two different cities. I do think it's kind of BS. So I don't love it. Like,
it's just not a fun thing to be at.
No, you just told me that. So you're telling me the guy who owns the Eagles is now going to own the Celtics? That's a kick in the nuts.
Yeah.
But you got to get
especially there is obviously Philly-Boston tension in that sport.
Yes.
So that's even more so. Like, I felt weird when John Henry bought the Penguins, and two Northeast teams, but they're not really rivals. But I'm like, I just don't love that, especially when it's your football team. Like, you give so much to that, and you're like, knowing that the owner is going to split the time. But hey, if it's going to be someone from another sports league, I'm glad it's him and not Fenway Sports Group.
It's just, look, dude, that's where we are in life and in sports. Like, we're so corporate now. You look at like the fan, that's why the Sixers are so tough to take, because the people sitting in the seats at those games don't represent the city of Philadelphia, and that sucks.
That does suck. And you're right. And that's a sports thing.
Yeah.
I could say the same thing about a Celtics game tomorrow. And that's emotionally too bad. Like, that will piss me off.
That's why hockey is a great sport, because the people at hockey games still do represent the true hockey fans of those cities, which is pretty dope.
Still, but we are moving away from it.
Yeah.
Let's have you on another time this week, and let's talk about that.
Can we
do that?
Yeah.
All right. Pete Souza of the Pete Souza Show. That's our lead-in every day. Pete Souza, 10 a.m. Central Time, live on YouTube, 11 a.m. Eastern. Pete, thank you very much for stopping by.